Tuesday or Tuesday night. Yeah.
That was like the second on my watch. That's pretty wicked. We ready to go, Ann?
Yep.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. We have met compliance with official notifications. Roll call, please.
Brooke Taylor,
Here.
Steve Stupak,
Here.
Laura Gapsky.
Here.
Michael Meyer.
Here.
Steve Olson,
Here.
myself, President Albrecht.
Here. All right, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for comments by members of the public during the meeting as indicated on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the board on any of the topics included on tonight's agenda may do so by completing a public comment sign-up sheet and handing it up front here to the deputy clerk, and comment should be focused on the items being considered by the board and should be restricted to no more than 3 minutes in length. With that, we'll move into the report of the superintendent.
Right. Mr. Flaherty, you want to come on up? All right, we got Principal Flaherty here, who is going to give us an update on his new building, like.
New old building.
New old building. To be honest, I'm kind of thankful to go right now because there's not much to report. But I'm excited about a couple things. First of all, I love the new building and I had a chance to be there during summer school and get to know the kids that were there for summer. And it was a lot of fun to get back there. I started out as an elementary teacher in 1990, so I'm kind of making full circle and going back to working with some of those younger kids. We had a great staff. Jamie Peterson and Phoebe, what's Phoebe's last name? I can't remember. Schnabel, who did a great job with the kids and some great assistance. So it was a lot of fun. I even got to go on a field trip, so it was a big deal. Couple other things I'm working on this summer. We're using new software to operate our before and after school programming. That's something that I will be helping with this coming year. Amy Waring has done this in the past, and she was awesome, and she's super organized. So I'm a little bit nervous about jumping in and taking over what she's been doing, but I think it'll go okay. Been working with Christy Wilmore also as we look at this new software. So that'll be a little bit of a learning curve, but I think it'll be good. It's going to be a good communication piece for families and give us an opportunity to really keep track of the students. I did start out the summer and I was still at the high school and wanted to thank Sarah Bianca for the work that she does to coordinate and the teachers there with that credit recovery piece. I don't know the official number she sent me. It was like 156 credits that were gathered. And I think 157, that's close. And at least 2 more graduates. Sarah is an incredible asset to our district and someone that we need to work to make sure that we keep around because she makes a huge difference in the online, our distance learning students, our online students, and that coordinating that credit recovery. She's phenomenal and someone we should be very proud of. Getting to know a lot of things. I'm jumping all over. I realize I got to work with Jen this morning and learning about things like the early childhood and how important that role is. I'm excited about working with those connections and building that connection between early childhood and kindergarten and seeing those students come on up through our building. So it's a great place. It's beautiful. Brittany, our custodian, is kept the place shining. Looks great. Looks you wouldn't know that the years on it when you walk down the hall. It really does look very nice. She does an incredible job. You tell her something, make a comment, and it's done within the next few minutes. So I mean, literally in the next few minutes, she drops what she's doing and she gets it done. So we're in great shape. I don't know if you have any questions.
And you have your shared leadership team meeting coming in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So you'll be working closely with those teacher leaders, planning your school improvement plans.
Correct, and I've had a chance to sit down with both the Sarah and with Sue Carell. I should know all the names. There's only a handful. And both those 2 ladies, again, have a great handle on what's going well at Lake Superior and have some ideas as we move forward to keep the kids growing and moving in the right direction. So there's what we have. And There you go. So have a.
Thanks,
good-
Rick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, the last item I have on my report is an informational item regarding a program that we'll be implementing for this upcoming school year. It's called Handle with Care. Handle with Care is not unique to Superior. There are districts across the country that have implemented Handle with Care. When I was assistant superintendent in Duluth, we implemented it in Duluth, and it's a partnership between law enforcement and school districts. I'll just highlight some of what we have up here on this flyer I put together as an informational item. But we know that statistics show that over 50% of students often have exposure to trauma or traumatic events in the community. And we know that trauma can have a direct impact on student learning in the classroom. And so this is an attempt to really support students who have been witnesses of trauma. We know that this is one strategy, and we know that we may not know about other situations that students are a part of, but this is specific when a student is involved in an incident that happens outside of school that involves law enforcement. So when a student witnesses something, it could be a domestic abuse situation where law enforcement are called to the home. It could be a drug-related offense that law enforcement are called to the home. It could be a fire. It could be a variety of things that law enforcement see that a child has witnessed some sort of traumatic event. This is simply to give the school a heads up that the child has been a witness of a traumatic event. It's really important to me that folks understand we're not prying into the situation that happened. It is simply understanding that we need to handle this child with care as they return to school the next day. So the process that we'll be implementing is in the event that a child has witnessed something, either the sheriff's department or the police department will simply send an email to my office before 8 o'clock before school starts the next day. And it'll simply say handle with care, and it'll give the student's name. My office then will identify what school the child attends, and will notify the principal, and the principal will immediately notify the counselor. And if it's an elementary school student, also inform the classroom teacher. We're not asking anybody to intervene, provide counseling or anything like that, but simply watch for warning signs that the child might be under stress or fatigued. The child might need some time to sleep. Sometimes we've seen students who are up all night and are really tired and they just need to put their head down in the nurse's office or whatever. Or we might see other signs of stress that we need to provide that support. So it's just one tool. It aligns really well to the work that we've been doing in recent years around social emotional learning and making sure our students have this social and emotional needs met. We know that when kids have those strong relationships at school, that learning will be better. So this is just an informational item just to share. Ed helped in our planning meeting with from the sheriff's department. We also had a rep from the police department kind of help put this plan in place. This was originally brought to my attention. I think Tracy Henniger at the extension office was the one who originally brought it to our community. And right away, both law enforcement agencies and us kind of came together to put some guidelines in place for what this could be this fall. You got anything to add? Did I forget anything?
Well, the only two things I'd add is the sheriff's office and police department are training later this month on this, so it's new to us and them. They'll get the training this month, so it can be implemented this next school year here. And also to kind of quench some thoughts people have is there's no confidentiality laws being broken or passed here. State law gives schools and law enforcement the ability to communicate back and forth. And then there is a new Marcy's law, but that only deals with victims of crimes, and that's not what this is geared towards. It's mostly identifying kids that experience something and giving schools a heads up.
And again, we're not informed of what happened with the student or the family, just simply that they were involved with something to watch. Any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, we'll move into the committee agenda, starting off with the Budget and Insurance Committee.
All right. So we have one action item, gifts, grants, and bequests. Administration recommends approval to accept gifts, grants, and bequests received in July of 2022.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We have no discussion items and no informational items.
The revenue and expense reports that we usually have on here are not ready for this month. And so, because we're still in the process of putting that together for audit and for next year's budget. So Shannon will have it ready for next week. And can,
Okay, I was gonna say, it's gonna be next week or next month.
yeah.
Okay.
All right,
That ends my report.
thank you, Brooke. Next up, we've got Teaching and Learning Committee with Steve O.
We have no action items, no discussion items, but we do have two informational items. First will be Crystal Hensman from the Director of Curriculum and Instruction on Summer Professional Development.
Okay, well, I just wanted to share a little bit of information about all of the hard work that our teachers and administrators have been doing this summer. It definitely is a myth when people say that there's downtime in the summer from some of our lenses, because we're very busy supporting teachers in some of their summer work. So a few of the things we've had going on this summer, and I think maybe I shared this first one a little bit earlier this summer, is we've had several teams of teachers come together to work on their proficiency tables and to continue to refine their expectations for students at the middle school and high school around their grades. We had 2 book studies going on, about 50 teachers participated in that. We also had middle school and high school math teachers come together. They came together twice in June and just last Thursday again to relook at their summative math assessments for their units, because we're going to be taking a deeper dive into some of our math data to try to identify what some of the challenges have been. So we had middle school and high school math teachers working on that. Last Thursday, I had the privilege of facilitating all of our middle school language arts teachers, including our newest ones that are joining the team, and our principals joined us for part of that as well. So they could get to know a new resource that they're going to use for some of their grammar lessons and start to do some planning for the year. Kate and our instructional coaches have been helping our new EMLSS teachers get a handle on what their roles and responsibilities will be. They started some training earlier this summer, and then they have a couple of days together later this week, and principals will be joining
Can you
that.
remind them what EMLSS teachers do?
Kate. I mean, I was turning to Kate on this one, because she's having an overview.
The acronym EMLSS stands for Equitable Multi-Level Systems of Support, otherwise known in other districts as intervention teachers or support teachers. I think they obviously fill a way bigger role than just very specific intervention. So we can thank the state of Wisconsin for that term as it broadens. But in all seriousness, we will be working with them the next 2 days in addition to the work we did in June. We have phenomenal teachers in this district. We all know that, but I have been just super impressed by this group of teachers. They're taking on new challenges. They aren't filling shoes of someone who's ever done this before in each of their buildings, and they are going to step into some leadership roles just naturally through this work. So it's pretty exciting to be working with them and our instructional coaches. It's been exciting work, and I'm excited to see the data that I hope to see out of this as kids start to achieve at higher levels. So
And these are specific positions we added with ESSER funds for the next 2 years, knowing that part of the reason ESSER funds exist is to address learning loss. And so we want to support students who may have experienced reading or math deficits at higher levels during the pandemic. So.
And we did some small group work last year using a couple different intervention tools that we're going to use in all buildings this year. And we saw some preliminary results from students who made pretty significant growth closing some of those gaps last year. So we hope to see.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then tomorrow officially starts our Summer Institute that we are offering this summer. This week, our teachers are taking sessions in responsive classroom. Next week, we have inquiry-based instruction, creating positive climate and culture in your classroom. We have several special ed topics that are getting offered for learning, and we also have some grading topics. So we have instructional coaches and teacher leaders and principals helping to lead those, and we're really excited about that. And then last but not least, on August 15th through 17th, our shared leadership teams from all of our buildings will be coming together for 3 days at Cooper to dig into our data. And Kate leads us through a process where we dig into that data and then determine the school's goals and actions for the year that are going to help us make that growth. So those are the biggies for professional development. All of our teachers that have attended and will attend that learning receive extended contract pay for their time to participate in that. We also provided pay for teachers who read outside of like the discussion groups for the book studies. We know that summer for many people also needs to be a time of rest. So when teachers do participate, we want to value their time and they got paid for that. I think that's it for now. Any questions about all the teachers have been up to this summer?
Busy summer.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome Erica Hutton Parker, our interim director of student services, and Erica will be providing a seclusion restraint data report from the past school year.
Thank you. Good evening. Wisconsin Act 118, seclusion and restraint, requires buildings and schools to report their seclusion and restraint information to the board by October of every year. And then that data is then reported to DPI by December 1st. And so I'll let Ann go ahead and pull up our data for 21-22. I'll wait till you go. There you go. Sorry about that. So our data for 21-22, our total seclusions were 18, total restraints were 23. And then the data is broken down between students who receive services and those who do not. So as you can see, we had 0 seclusions of students on the gen ed side. And then there were a total of 18 seclusions for students with IEPs, and there were 7 total students involved. Restraints, 7 restraints for gen ed students with 6 total students involved. And then students with IEPs, there were 16, 10 total students involved. And then our number of seclusion and restraints, gen ed students, total of 7, 6 students total. And then students who receive services, there were a total of 34 incidents with a total of 15 students involved. Then if you look at page 2, it delineates the data by building. I'll just give you a second to take a look at that. We have Superior High School at the top, then the middle school, Great Lakes Elementary, Cooper Elementary, Bryant, and then Northern Lights. If a school is not listed, they had 0 instances of seclusion and 0 instances of restraint. So. And if you have any questions, you can just contact me and I'd be happy to walk through anything with you.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. And unless there's anything else, that concludes my report.
All right, thanks, Steve. Next up, we've got Personnel and Negotiations Committee with Mike.
Thanks, Mr. President. I have 2 action items. Administration recommends approval of the August 2022 new hires, transfers, and separations.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Excuse me, how are we going into the school year now?
We
Position,
just asked Sue this morning. Still looking for a couple teaching positions. And hopefully maybe a special education hire this week. We're interviewing, so. Yep. So,
yeah.
yep,
Thank you.
which is not unusual for this time of year. Yep.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Administration recommends releasing Rachel Swanson, elementary teacher from LSE, from her 22-23 school contract per her request effective July 26, 2022, with the liquidated damages provision enforced.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'll just speak for Molly because she's not here tonight. I know the recommendation to implement the liquidated damages is because this is consistent with past practice of the board and does not necessarily align to the reasons for it. We have waived those in the past.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mike. Our last committee report for tonight is the legislative committee with Ed.
All right, there are no action items and no discussion items, couple information items. First one, been on here a few times now, WASB resolutions. The WASB resolutions book is now updated and posted online. Resolutions adopted by the annual WASB Delegate Assemblies set the policy direction for the WASB and its lobbying efforts. Board resolutions for considerations for the 2023 Delegate Assembly must be submitted to the WASB by September 15th. And then the second one, DPI releases July 1 preliminary general aid estimates. As required by state law, DPI released estimates of the general school aid amounts each public school district will receive with 2022-2023 school year. These amounts are unofficial estimates intended to assist school districts to develop their school year budgets. Attached as a district breakdown per school. Superior School District is projected to see a 5.28% increase from last year, amounting to about $33.7 million in aid. And then there's the complete list is attached to that. I will just add, if I can, to the WASB resolutions. I did download the book. It's pretty extensive over the years of different resolutions that WASB's backing per se. And I guess I encourage anybody else to download and look at it. Pretty eye-opening to me, all this stuff in it, but it's broken out pretty nice. And I think we're gonna try to talk about it later tonight too, but anybody else has ideas, please pass them on. That's everything for this committee.
All right, thank you, Ed. That concludes the committee reports, comments by members of the public. Has anybody turned in any comment sheets? Okay, I did get one communication that I was asked to read here at the meeting. It's a letter I received from Kelly Cohen in response to a question about her departure. And she wanted me to read this to everybody in the board. It's lengthy, so bear with me. Dear Len, this letter is in response to an inquiry I received from a current board member regarding the reason for my departure from the Superior School District. I hope that by responding in depth, I can put to rest any unproductive rumors. Although the long hours required of an administrative assistant to the superintendent were a factor in my decision, the primary reason for my departure was job stress caused by the heightened political environment of the board and community. I truly loved my job and working for Amy at its best, I felt was doing meaningful work that made a positive impact on our community. However, as time went on, it became increasingly frustrating to watch my school district colleagues work so hard and receive so little respect for their efforts. With COVID, feelings only intensified. As we navigated the minefield of COVID guidelines and restrictions, I received phone threats both personally and against Amy. I removed myself from social media because I could no longer handle the negativity. I grew increasingly concerned for Amy's physical safety outside of work. To a certain extent, public complaints are part of the territory. Helping families navigate the complaint process and reach a resolution in the best interest of the student was something I found rewarding. However, over the past school year, there was a change in tone in the community. It seemed like no matter what we did, no matter how hard we worked, it was never enough. It became difficult to feel like my work really mattered. We were being asked to solve systemic, nationwide issues that ultimately stem from factors outside our school walls. And yet, even as I watched our staff dive in to tackle these complex issues, and to do right by kids. I watched community members foster conspiracy theories, harmful rhetoric around their best efforts, with a complete lack of respect for their decades of experience and how deeply I know these leaders care about kids. At the same time, a political mindset was gaining traction in our community that was deeply unsettling to me. Issues that have no impact on creating more positive outcomes for our students and community, and in fact would result in the increased targeting and stigma around kids who are most at risk for suicide and other adverse outcomes, were being tossed around with little regard for the human lives at stake. Ultimately, 3 incidents pushed me over the edge to start seeking other employment. 1, on the day of the school board election, an individual came into the board office, escalated by the political rhetoric around a candidate's Twitter posts. He proceeded to yell at me about these tweets, repeating some of the talking points that had been circulated on social media and showed no signs of being willing to leave the building. Fortunately, Director David C. was in the office that day and heard the commotion at the front desk and was able to provide support. David's presence was enough to encourage this person to leave. 2, also around the election, I was alerted by a colleague that my name was being mentioned on a political campaign Facebook page as someone who should be contacted to assist with moving complaints forward at a board level or with general questions about board function and policy. It was not intended unkindly. However, in concert with the general question about board function, in concert with the individual who had just been in our office and the general political rhetoric I was seeing take hold in our community, state and nationwide, I was unsettled to be called out by name on a social media platform by a political group. 3, after the election, a coordinated complaint regarding curriculum came forward in our district. It had many similarities to other coordinated efforts at school districts, state and nationwide that in many cases resulted in aggression towards school district leaders. Additionally, the topic of the complaint was not related to improving student outcomes. I could see a future taking shape where we spent many hours in board meetings, committee hearings, and eventually entangled in legal proceedings, all while the issues of actually facing our district that could improve lives and save kids had to sit by the wayside until the political showmanship reached its end. Let me be perfectly clear on 3 things. First, my decision to leave had nothing to do with additional compensation that could have been offered or job accommodations that could have been made. I was very clear in my personal discussions with Amy regarding my departure that money was not a factor. And I did not and do not believe that the concerns were within her control to accommodate. Second, I never felt disrespected or personally targeted by any current board member. I was always treated kindly and professionally. However, I do not have the confidence that their supporters or others who may follow them politically or on social media would have the same restraint. Ultimately, even though the rhetoric around our most recent school board campaign was not intended to encourage verbal abuse of district staff, those words had a ripple effect, influencing others who may have been on the fringes or outside the campaign to take actions that made me feel on edge. Finally, I had and have an excellent relationship with Amy. She is hardworking, cares deeply about our community, and cannot tolerate mediocrity in any form. She is the smartest person I know, one of the bravest, and has an incredibly tender heart for students. In no way was she a factor in my decision to leave, besides my concern that she will be motivated by the same factors to move as well. Board members, if I may, this is my call to action for you. I have nothing but the deepest respect and highest hopes for the Superior School District. I truly believe that each of you was motivated to run for school board office because you care about kids and you want what is best for this community. You are in a position to do great things and move our community forward. Keep your focus on the students, not on what is politically or personally advantageous for you. What is popular in the media, being shared as a social media meme, or the current hot topic. There is common ground between the 7 of you and so much good work to be done. Find that common ground and put aside the political posturing and harmful rhetoric that doesn't serve our community. Seek solutions with humility and respect. Our community is watching the way you treat and talk about each other, our staff, and our students. Show them how a group of 7 individuals with different backgrounds, perspectives, and priorities can nevertheless come together to have difficult conversations, make the tough calls, and ultimately support each other and our district. Sincerely, Kelly. And I guess what I'd like to say is I believe we should all take and do a little self-reflection and take Kelly's message to heart.
Thank you, Lon.
There's no other comments. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks.
Yeah, I do.
Thanks, Amy. You're welcome. Goodness.